everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiara, aka Bookworm Babe, and today I'm gonna be doing my May wrap up. I feel like I'm so overdue for like a wrap up, and with all the stuff going on with 2 Times Removed and just things of that sort, it has kept me like ridiculously busier than I expected, and then amongst like other things that have started up. And of course it's, you know, we're in summer now, so it's like you just want to kind of like kick back and relax and enjoy the weather, but obviously there's still work to be done. But nonetheless, I'm here with my May wrap up, and if you guys were kind of following me throughout May and seeing what I was doing, I had started the Indo-Caribbean Readathon, and my reason for starting that was really to just pay homage to the month of May, essentially, because I know, you know, May is Indian Arrival Day in so many of our home countries, and there's always that debate going on now of, you know, whether we should or shouldn't celebrate Indian Arrival Day. And I spoke on this in a past video where I talked about the readathon, but I do for sure agree that I think it's kind of unnecessary to celebrate the arrival, because our ancestors did not get to the Caribbean, you know, with a red carpet laid out or something. They weren't there for any sort of fancy reason, so the arrival isn't necessarily celebratory, but I do think it's important, of course, to pay homage to our ancestors, as well as, you know, all the hard work and sacrifice and everything that came and they had, you know, created once they came to the Caribbean. So that was my reason for starting the Indo-Caribbean Readathon. And so all the books that I read throughout May were, of course, Indo-Caribbean reads, and I'm really excited to share them with you guys because they were honestly like an amazing bunch. And you guys may or may not, well, and I'm sure you might recognize some of the names that I have in the books that I read throughout May. So let's jump right into it. The first book that I read for May for the Indo-Caribbean Readathon was called Butterfly in the Wind, and this is by Lakshmi Persaud. So Lakshmi Persaud, if you guys maybe haven't heard of her, is quite a big name in Indo-Caribbean literature, and for my Indo-Caribbean folks, you guys probably would recognize her name, or if not, you probably at least heard of her. And this was my first time reading one of her books, and it really and honestly did not disappoint at all. I was really happy with this book, and it was an interesting experience. Actually, it was a bit of a different experience, just in the sense of the way it was written, but like I said, I really enjoyed it. So a little bit about the book. Butterfly in the Wind is a fictional autobiography, I guess you can call it, and it follows a girl named Kamalo Maharaj, and she's growing up in Passia Village in the, you know, 40s and 50s, right? And Passia Village is in Trinidad, for anyone who may not know. So we basically follow Kamalo from her childhood all the way until her young adulthood, and we get a look at all the different things that had influenced her life, essentially. So each new section or chapter of the book is a story, kind of like a short piece that goes along with that part of her life. So we learn about the servants that were in her home, for example, because her family was very wealthy. Her parents owned a business and things of that sort, so they were well off and had servants in their home. And we see just in the way that the servants talk to Kamalo, and, you know, even though she's a child, they share a lot of snippets of their own lives with her, and there's such a huge contrast, right? They're waking up super early in the morning trying to cook a meal to leave for like their husbands and children before they go off to work at the home of the Maharajas, and you know, there's obviously money gaps that are very obvious, as well as, you know, one of the servants, she's always like worried about her husband because he spends most of the money in the rum shop, so she's always trying to keep track of him and find out where he is, essentially. These short stories and flashbacks were really cool because we also get a glimpse inside Kamalo's own growth, right? So we see that she's a very outspoken young girl, and she's very bold in that sense, especially for the times. And often in school, it kind of backfired on her because she would get kind of reprimanded by teachers and things of that sort. Essentially, I really liked at the fact that you got that inside thought on Kamalo, because you really got to see the inside thoughts of a girl growing up in this time. And one thing I really liked about this book too is the fact that you see the religious influences, because they of course are from a very Hindu Indian community, and all of that plays a role in, you know, a daughter's life, and even to the mothers and other women, right? How much you're allowed to speak out, how bold you can really be, because you know, you're expected to fulfill certain duties and you know, maintain a very specific image. So those I thought were really cool. And the way, you know, we follow the book is, you know, like I said, Kamalo's from childhood to adulthood, and all of her experiences and things, you know, boys, other girls at school, you know, her family and things of that sort, all leads up to her essentially ending up leaving Trinidad to go and study abroad. And we just see how everything that has happened in the past has essentially led up to this point now in her life where she's making such a huge decision. And of course, with her going abroad, everyone is, you know, ecstatic and so proud of her and things of that sort. So this was a 5 out of 5 for me. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I think from a female perspective, reading this book, which also comes from, you know, such a female perspective, there's a lot that we can relate to, and just in general a lot of societal commentary and things like that. And I just really enjoy being so inside the head of a female character, so that was really great for me. The next book that I read is called Cascadoo, and this book is by Kamalo Deen. This book was honestly amazing. So right off the bat, this was also a 5 out of 5 for me. Cascadoo follows a male character, an adult male character. We're never actually given his name. In the very beginning, we're given a bit of context before we're thrown into his story. So, you know, it's a older woman who is sharing all the letters and stories written by her brother who had passed away with young boy before she goes to move away and live with her daughter, because her husband's passed, she's now, you know, on her own. And of course, you know, live in a big house by yourself is a lot for an older person, so she's gonna move on and shares the things with another boy who she believes can really make use of them. So the book is arranged through a series of letters to the sister that's talked about in the beginning, personal like poems and reflections, as well as memories and flashbacks from the character's time living in Trinidad. So our main character, it starts off around the holidays. He's in New York and he's observing everything around him. It's bright, it's colorful, there's lights, you know, it's such an exciting time, but he's basically celebrating the holidays alone and very much missing Christmas in Trinidad, which is of course such an exciting time, and there's food and friends and family and drinks and sweets and so much stuff, and he's reflecting on that through letters to his sister. And throughout the course of the letters and the reflections, we see that he starts off not feeling well, and then increasingly becomes sicker and sicker and starts to hallucinate, and is dealing with very, very extreme loneliness. He's dealing with a lot of depression because, again, he's in this big city by himself with nobody else, no family or anything, and, you know, keeping in touch with his sister and getting letters from her is basically what keeps him going. And this character is also a writer, so he often refers to a novel that he's working on. And even in the book actually provides, there's like a section where he actually talks about the full synopsis of the book, which is really interesting actually, and I really liked it. It made for a really cool synopsis, and I thought it was interesting in that sense. So it's, you know, in a way, it's a beautiful story and a beautiful book because of the way it's delivered and it's written. I love the format of the poems, the flashbacks of his really good times in Trinidad with friends and family and stuff. Just all the happy times in his life, essentially. But then throughout those letters to his sister, you see he gets increasingly sadder, increasingly, you know, more depressed, like I had mentioned, and his health is rapidly deteriorating to the point where he is hospitalized at one point. Prior to being hospitalized, you know, despite the doctors telling him and wanting to hospitalize him even before, he still very much resisted. But it's quite sad in the sense that, you know, we see I feel like it's something that's very relatable, you know, when people immigrate to a new country and you don't know anybody, or especially if you're immigrating without family, you're really on your own and you're working from, you know, the bottom, like you're working your way up in this new place where you don't have any prior, you know, any prior help or anything like that. So I think it's very relatable in the sense of the, you know, the sadness people feel, the longing for home and where their family and good times are, but then they're also trying to make life work in this new place that they chose to come to. You know, he chose to come to America in hopes of pursuing his writing career and pursuing his novel and making it out there, and of course having a dream. So this was, like I said, also a 5 out of 5 for me. I thought it was just such a relatable and such a beautiful story in so many ways, and I would definitely recommend everyone to check this one out. The very last book that I read for the month of May was called We Mark Your Memory, Writing from the Descendants of Indenture. This is also probably a book that a lot of people might recognize. It is very well known. I see it on Instagram all the time, where it comes up in my suggestions on Amazon. It is just, it's a really great project that was put together, and I finally got a chance to get my hands on it, and I really enjoyed it. This book shares short stories and poetry, both fiction and non-fiction stories, from the descendants of Indenture, as it says. And what is really cool about this book that I want to say just off the top from now is it's not specifically just the descendants of Indenture in the Caribbean, the, you know, Trinidadian, Guyanese, Jamaican, like what we're I guess I can say very familiar with, because of course we know that there were so many, you know, Indo-Caribbeans who descended from indenture, of course, throughout the Caribbean, but indentured, you know, laborers also went to other places like Fiji and Mauritius. Those I find are often left out of the conversation, just because they, you know, they didn't end up in the Caribbean, but they are part of that whole indenture lineage. So all of the stories and poems in the book they kind of came from people's personal experiences or their family stories, which I really liked, because I'm a sucker for any bit of family history or any kind of history, and I really like the experiences that people shared in here. One of the stories that really stuck out for me was a story where, you know, two characters, they're a married couple, and they are from Trinidad, and the wife wants to go to India to experience it, to, you know, just see this place that you know, our ancestors came from. And when she gets to India, she realizes that it's so different, and it kind of shocks her a lot, and she feels very out of place and very uncomfortable most of the time, and really just kind of finding herself wanting to go home, like, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. There's so much stuff that's just very strange and very sticking out to me. Take me back home. This is not what I thought it was gonna be. And I really love that story, just because I think for a lot of us, we can relate to that, where you're always wondering about this motherland that we root from at one point in our history, but we haven't actually been in for hundreds of years at this point now. And upon visiting it, you know, some people might find themselves very at home, but for others, you might end up finding the opposite. And, you know, this dream of this motherland where you would think that you're gonna feel really connected and welcome may actually end up being the opposite. So that was just an example of one of the stories that stuck out to me, and like I said, I really enjoyed it. Some of the other poetry explored, you know, people's family members and the struggles they went through. A lot of female family members, which was really cool. A lot of grandmothers and great-grandmothers. Stories of, you know, ancestral villages and things that went on along family history, or just kind of paint the picture of what life was like during indenture in all these places, or even post-indenture, what the world was like. One of the stories was about you know, a family from Fiji and their love of gathering yearly for like a soccer tournament, because it was something that really stuck from, you know, when their parents and grandparents were in Fiji, and still continued once they had immigrated to Canada. They kept up that tradition because it made everyone feel connected. So those, like I said, were some examples, and there's such a wide variety in the book. I feel like, I don't know how many were in here altogether. I want to say there was like 30 or something like that. Yeah, I don't know, maybe like 20 or 20 something, a mix of stories and poetry, but they were all really cool and all really cool personal experiences. And I feel like, you know, if you're of course interested in the topic of indenture or just trying to add more to your, you know, your personal knowledge and things of that to add to your collection and whatever you might want to learn, this is a really cool place to kind of add on to that collection. So highly recommend this one, 5 out of 5 for me. So that is it for me today, guys. Those are the 3 books I had read. I was hoping to squeeze in a 4th, but because May ended up being so busy, I was honestly lucky that I ended up doing those 3 and still managing them. But as you guys can see, they were a great set, and I already, you know, I've started my June reading. June is Read Caribbean month, if you guys don't know, so definitely try to read some Caribbean if you haven't started. I definitely am, and so far it's off to a good start. I have more good reads that I'm very excited to be sharing come next month when I do my June wrap up. So it's gonna be very cool, very cool, for sure. So like I said, that is it for me today. I'm so glad I was able to give you guys this little update and share some reads, and I will be back soon with more. Take care and stay safe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.